Hello. We're just waiting on Sháńdíín Brown to join the live video, and then we'll be getting started with our intern takeover of the SAR Artists Live series.
Hello.
Hey,
Oh my God, can you see me?
vaguely, it's a little bit
It's a little
bright. The
white.
sun might be coming
Okay.
in hard.
Maybe I'll switch positions before we start then.
Sounds good.
I don't have a tripod, so I've been using duct tape for my iPhone, which is a life hack in case anyone wants to know one.
I feel like duct tape you can use for anything. It's
I
multi-purpose.
do too.
And
They always say like carry duct tape in your car or like whatever. So I do.
right, for making a tripod. Yeah, easy.
Yes, which doesn't want to work, but I'll hold it.
Sounds great. Okay, well, for anyone tuning in right now, my name's Emily Santanum, and I'm going to be talking with Sháńdíín Brown. We're both ANRE interns here at the School for Advanced Research in Santa Fe. So typically this programming is focused on the Artist Live series, but we're going to be doing something a little bit different and talking about Sháńdíín's life and work, and how her experience has been as an intern. So I guess before we get started, if you have any questions for Sháńdíín throughout our little chat, you can feel free to just write them in the little box, and we will send them her way and we can chat about that. So Sháńdíín, if you want to just take it away and give a short bio and talk about who you are and what brought you to the School for Advanced Research.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Sháńdíín Brown. I'm Navajo. I am born and raised in Arizona. Yat esh e Haley Brownie nishye, ki ani nishle, kuzaslana deshiche do bilagana deshinele, do yeah. So I'm Haley. I don't know, I'm so nervous because it's me and Emily's first time doing this. Oh, I already got a question.
Do you have a daily or weekly routine?
Okay, so kind of. I think all of us kind of have weird routines because in the pandemic, like we're not always working in the office. But I wake up pretty early, usually 6:30, drink my coffee, like all of us. And then Emily and I start at 8:30 and we end at 5. And then I have been doing a lot of like fun, well, I'm in quarantine, but before quarantine, I was doing fun like outdoor stuff. And me, Emily, and one of the scholars, Alana, have been kind of sharing trails, so it's been fun. Yeah.
I guess in terms of your backstory, so you just graduated from Dartmouth College um, last year, so pretty recently, just in the late spring, early summer. So you want to talk about what you majored in and maybe what were some of the projects that centered on museum work or curatorial work?
Yeah, sure. So, I have, or I guess I earned a double major in anthropology and Native American studies. I did a concentrate on cultural anthropology, and then I also minored in environmental studies. So I honestly feel like all three of those fields intersect really well, and there should be like some mega term for it, because Native people have always been very aware of their, earthly surroundings, and I think anthropology is just a tool to explore that. And yeah, let's see, I was at the Hood, which Anne just brought up. I was at the Hood Museum. I was intern there for 2 years. And yes, Jamie Powell is my mentor. She is so amazing. I like want to be Jamie when I grow up. She's the first, yeah, she's like the first associate curator at Dartmouth Museum, the Hood, for Native American art. She's really badass, and she does a lot of like community outreach and also like contemporary Indigenous art, which is really cool. And she's Osage. So, did I mention how Jamie was so cool and like let me curate a show? Did I talk about Unbroken?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'm just like spitting out words because I'm like,
We have
um,
30 minutes, so we have time.
Yeah, so with Unbroken, me and Dylan Peace, Dylan is Navajo too, and he graduated from Dartmouth in 2019 with a concentration in studio arts. He's a really amazing artist. For anyone watching, go check out his work, dylanpeace.com. And so we're both Navajo, and we did a show on Southwest ceramics, but we tried to really talk about this evolution of ceramics from like traditional in the sense of like early 20th century, because a lot of our collection is from the Fred Harvey era where traditional was kind of catering to white tourists, and then to now where ceramic artists have all types of outlets they can sell to, like galleries, museums, private collectors. And so it's really cool to like explore academically these like visual shifts in pottery and sculpture, which is cool because now I'm at SAR and we do a lot of pottery work.
Yeah. So that show ended up getting postponed, right, because of COVID, but it's
Yes.
scheduled for a couple of years down the line.
Yeah, so like a lot of us, um, it was postponed. It was supposed to come out in spring of 2020, and it could come out in 2021, it could come out in 2022. It just kind of depends on, where the pandemic goes.
Okay. But either way, you did the work. It was curated. It's an
I
amazing show,
did.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm like this little baby that I worked on for 2 years. I just want him to like be out. I want it to like, I want other people to see it and like get feedback, but just kind of being patient and waiting.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. You mentioned that working with pottery has sort of helped dovetail into the work that you do as an
Hmm.
ANRAE intern. So do you want to talk a little bit about how the program's been for the past 2 months?
Yeah, so it's been really good. I really like Santa Fe. I used to live here before, and like I think I actually, yeah, we did like when I was here before with Dartmouth, we did a tour of SAR, and I was like, wow, this place is so cool. And so now that I'm here, it's been really nice to like kind of explore deeper into the collection. There's so many objects to like look at that it's been really like fun to kind of just like concentrate on the jewelry collection or concentrate on like, a specific Pueblo's group of pots. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like the best place I could be right now. So
And Felicia, who typically hosts these
yeah.
programs with artists, asks, when did you realize you were interested in museum or curatorial work?
Oh gosh. So like I think I was in high school and like I didn't know what I like wanted to be when I grow up, like the infamous question. I kind of wanted to be like a teacher, and I didn't, but I was also like kids, meh, I don't know. But I really do care about like public education. And so I was a part of like a program at U of A that was well, the University of Arizona, that was like encouraging high schoolers to like pursue higher education, specifically Native high schoolers. And we went to the Arizona State Museum, which is really cool. It's in Tucson. It's at U of A's campus. And they like gave us a tour and they showed us into the back room of their archives. And yeah, Nate just said NASEP. Yes, me and Nate were in NASEP together. And yeah, like seeing the entire like archives of Tohono O'odham like pots, I mean not pots, baskets, was so cool. And I was like, oh my God. And then I was just like, I'm interested in like not only Navajo culture, but like, other tribal cultures. And I think museums and other institutions like that are a really good way to connect to past histories and kind of like future ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I guess speaking of that, you got to sort of jump in. Well, you and I both jumped in virtually on one of the community oriented collection reviews that went on here at
Hmm.
SAR. Um,
Yeah.
what did you think about that experience in terms of sort of re familiarizing people whose ancestors and whose families created these works and letting them sort of come back into the collection and really learning from them and sort of having a symbiotic learning experience? What did you say? It's breaking up just a little bit. Okay. All right, we're going to try to end this and start again, and hopefully our internet will cooperate. So give me 1 second. Hello, my name is Emily Santanum. I was just talking with Sháńdíín Brown, one of the fellow Anne Ray interns here at the School for Advanced Research, and the internet cut out on us a little bit, so we're going to do a second little series now. And fingers crossed, we don't get booted off the internet this time, so only time will tell. But thank you all for bearing with us. This is our first time using the platform here for the School for Advanced Research. So we are definitely learning. Let's see. All right, it looks like it's trying to connect.
Hi.
Wow, yeah. I know both of our internets are like infamously bad on campus, so it was sort of inevitable.
Did I stop talking? Or did you stop?
I heard you stop talking, but you said you heard me stop talking.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'll just keep going, but it was like, I don't know if anyone's hearing me.
Oh man. Yeah, well, hopefully, fingers crossed, second time's a charm.
Yes.
But let's see. So we were talking about the Tasuki collection reviews, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you want to sort of talk about what that process looked like in terms of doing collection reviews virtually, at least on our end?
Yeah, so I think it was challenging. I like some of the people in the Zoom were elders, and I think that like elders, it's so much more enjoyable to be face to face. And especially, for the technologically challenged elders, I think it can be sometimes difficult to like communicate, but it was definitely very rewarding to see people like light up and like see things that were like culturally significant to them. So yeah, I had a really good time, and like I am excited for the days when we do those like in person, and really like doing work with the communities.
Yeah, I know. I really am too. Hopefully that'll come about within the next 7 months that we're here. So I guess that's one aspect of what we would have been working on and got to work on a little
Hmm.
bit last week. But do you want to sort of, you talked a little bit about your schedule in terms of waking up and having coffee. But do you want to talk a bit about the different projects that we're working on and sort of how they're siphoned off in terms of disciplines?
Yeah, so I think with the schedule question, I definitely should have mentioned that. I was like, yeah, I wake up and drink coffee and then I go to work. But when I'm actually at work, so both of us are on flip schedules. So when Emily's doing one thing during the day, I'm usually doing another thing. But we rotate between collections with Molly. I love Molly. And then education with Felicia, who's super great, and registration with Jen, who's also really knowledgeable and amazing. And then Tuesdays, we work at the Museum of Contemporary Native American Art, MOCNA, at the Plaza. And we work with Manuela Welloff, who is also just super generous for letting us, learn from her and be in the office. And yeah, it's always something new. I feel like the staff always have so many projects, and then I get overwhelmed, and then we like try to help them. And it's like, I guess working in an institution like this, there's always, a million things to do, but it feels so satisfying to be like, okay, we got that giant box of like record scanned, or like we made at least one like big step towards like our video production for Mocha. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. Another part of it is the curatorial aspect, right? And working in
Right. Yeah.
e-museum. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe what project you're sort of honing in on right now and how research is going?
Yeah, that's like one of I think the best parts of our like job here at SAR. Oh no, she's buffering. Okay, I'm like
Wait, yeah,
so
it's buffering
scared
on
it's
you
gonna go
too.
out. Okay, maybe here, I'll
Okay, it looks like you went.
screen.
uh, yeah, it looks like it's fully paused on you now. I'm not sure. Um, let's see. Do you want to try talking? I can kind of vaguely see you. Is your internet just not working at all? All right, so we tried that again, and it looks like Sháńdíín's internet or my internet, someone's internet is not cooperating. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and try to reconnect with her and see if she is able to join. And thank you all for bearing with us. This is not the ideal way that this goes, but it's a learning process. Hey. Okay, let's see. Is your mic working? Is your mic working? Can you hear or not? Okay. Yeah, it looks like it is Sháńdíín's internet. It's loading.
Are we back?
I think we might be back.
I'm so scared.
I know we've talked about how bad the internet can be, but it's never worked this badly on both sides.
I know. I just kept hearing static, and then you were like, "Are you there?" I was like, "Yes."
Uh, well, I mean, are you on like data roaming or are you
Okay,
just
I got off data because that didn't work, so we're back on SAR Wi-Fi. So I fingers crossed. Third time is a
third
charm.
time? Yeah, I'm really knocking on wood this time around.
Well, anyway, so
So you drink coffee in the morning and then
we have established that I'm a coffee drinker. Yes.
let's see. So what were we talking about? I think a little bit about the e-museum process.
Yeah. Okay. So before everything kind of went crazy, yeah, I think e-museum and also being able to curate like a little space in the vault is so special to this internship. Curation is something that I'm really interested in. And like my show so far, I think it's going to be about contemporary Native American fashion, 1950s to now. So hopefully by utilizing some pieces that we have from like the mid 20th century when it was kind of this boarding school era was still existing to now where I think Native people have a lot more agency in like how we express ourselves. And there should be some like Econav pieces, and some really cool like just nods to women, women designers. So I'm looking forward to that. And when it's on eMuseum, the general public should be able to see it, which is cool.
Yeah. Are there any pieces in particular you like sort of discovered on TMS or in the vaults that you're really excited about writing about?
We have this Akanav dress, and I've been like a giant fan of Akanav for a while now. When I used to work at the Heard Museum, we have every year we have a fashion show at Indian Market, and like when I saw like his stuff, I was just so blown away. And so I'm really excited to write about that because I think he is just, as a designer, is just such a good example of like really like integration and also to like mainstream fashion because I think his fashion alone stands really well. But also he does a really awesome job integrating like public culture. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds amazing. Um, yeah, so speaking of design and fashion, so those are two sort of wheelhouses that you're interested in generally, right? When it comes
Yes.
to like how to put a native stamp on the fashion industry and sort of carve out spaces for people
Hmm.
like us. So you have your own jewelry making process, right? So you're like
I
creative in your own
do.
time outside of the workspace.
Yes. I think like a lot of us, it's kind of just like during quarantine, I was like, I need things to do. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna like actually start like applying myself. And I was trained at the Dartmouth jewelry making studio in silversmithing, not for a long period of time due to coronavirus that was kind of cut short, but I have done work with turquoise. And Navajo juniper beads is something that I also like really like to work with. My grandma used to bead me stuff with that, so that's why it's kind of like special in that sense.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I have stuff for show and tell because I was like, this will be a great way to promo myself. Um, I have like this ring that I made. It's from turquoise and like my
Wow.
yeah, and like my grandfather made this ring. So I tried to kind of like copy the style. The only thing is that this one like has, oh Lord, this one has a split shank, which was like a little bit stylistically different. And then I just made these for my friend's birthday. They're like, I hope you can see them. They're like, they have
Oh my
juniper,
gosh.
these really pretty purple beads. And if you're in Santa Fe, you should totally go to Bead Weaver, which is next to that little grocery store that we went to that one day. Um, because I just picked up like an abalone heart, which I think I'm gonna make into a choker.
That's
And
amazing.
also, right? And also
Yeah.
these like spiny oyster pieces, which I think would be really cute as like earrings. I don't know.
Oh,
So
totally.
yeah, and since I'm in quarantine, it's like I have a lot of time to like, you know, time to myself to like kind of keep sane and do fun stuff like that.
Work on that process. Yeah. I didn't know
Yeah.
your grandfather was a jewelry maker.
Yeah, so um like it kind of like runs in the family, but I just like never really I don't know, I didn't think of myself as like creative as that, so I never really got into it, but then I was like, you know what? I actually can do this. So, yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah, I bet you wish you were able to find a spot in town that you could do like silver.
Dude, yeah. Yeah, like I definitely totally wish that I could do that. I was also like I really wanted to take IIA classes. Um, it's always like kind of in the back of my head. I'm like, maybe I should just go to IIA and get another degree. Maybe I should just get a studio arts degree. But I kind of just graduated, so I'm like, I want a break. But in La La Land, yeah, I think that
I
would be
mean,
really
we're not
cool.
taking that much of a break from it because we're both taking classes via IIA as
I know
well, via
we're still
continuing
in
ed.
school. Yeah.
um, so yeah, what are those two classes that you're taking and how have they been so far? I know the one grant writing class already ended for us, but I
Right.
imagine the international Indigenous art class is really up your alley. So do you want to talk about
It
it?
is. Yeah. So that is led by Amber Bear Don Rowe, who is really cool. And last class we went over New Zealand art, which was really fun because I did spend time in Aotearoa. And yeah, I think it's cool because like I don't know, I always see myself as like a student, you know. I don't think that just because I got my degree, I'm done. And like I want to go to grad school, but I also think that like there's this weird colonial view that we can like, okay, now I'm ranting, but there's this colonial view that you can only like educate yourself in these, you know, colonial institutions with honorary, you know, titles and everything. But yeah, IIA is really cool and I really like the class. And the grant writing class is also cool because I've never really thought about grant writing like that. I got funded by grants, but now it's made me more appreciative of like the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Um, let's see. Yeah. So in terms of talking about, yeah, you sort of mulling over the idea of grad school or figuring that out.
Hmm.
Do you have sort of like vague, general next step plans in terms of? I know this is like the dreaded question no one really wants to answer. I
Yeah.
want you to ask me when I'm on the other side. But yeah, has this internship sort of helped sort of guide whether or not you do want to work in a museum sphere or collection sphere?
Yeah, it's like I definitely think it solidified that. I think I'm mostly kind of aiming and gearing towards curatorial work. It's been super cool to like work with registration and collections though. Like I definitely have a much greater appreciation for those departments. But I don't really know what's next. I'm just kind of living day by day. I feel like there's just like so much going on right now that I'm just trying to be in the moment. But ideally, you know, if anyone's looking for unemployment, me and Emily hit us up. Like, yeah, I don't know, but I think it's exciting how like I don't know, there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of things to see and places to go. So, yeah.
And you're a bit more interested in the like contemporary native art side. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I was like I got my degree in anthropology, which was cool, but and super like grateful and helpful and useful, but like I think it's kind of been eye-opening when I also took classes at IAIA before and like worked with Jamie who does contemporary art. It's like really I think important for me and there's like a place in my heart to just kind of do more work with living artists because it's important that stories of the past are told, but also like these contemporary experiences or viewpoints or ways of expression. So I think so, but also like who knows? I don't know. Everything's just kind of like we'll see when we get there.
Right. Yeah. And I guess I'm sort of curious when you were talking about your three different disciplines that you studied at school,
Mm.
and how they're so intertwined in a way that like they should kind of be their own major in and of themselves. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like what do you see in terms of how those three anthropology, environmental studies, and then native history, how do you see them sort of working together? Um, and what would you like to see, I guess, out of those three fields coming together?
Good question. I mean, I definitely think that as like Native people, there's a giant need for like Indigenous scholars and Indigenous stories, like more of a focus on like the communities themselves rather than like how outsiders perceive that. Um, and like for Native studies, I'm really excited for these like badass Indigenous femmies to kind of like take some space in the boys' club or whatever. And I also think for like environmental studies, I did a lot of work about like how this contemporary sustainability movement is something that's rooted in Indigenous ideology. Like Native nations have kind of been sustainable, like, you know, forever. And it's just cool to kind of see, I think, this melting between non-Native people who are super passionate about like earth justice and stuff and how to live in a way that respects the earth, and also these Native communities who have like ancestral knowledge. So, more, I guess, in that field of integration of the both. And then anthro, just like more women, more native people. I don't honestly, do we have to like even call it anthro. I wish there was like another term just because anthropology just has such like a rough past of like exploitation. But yeah, I'm excited. I think that like our generation and the next generation and everyone, they're making really good strides.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And so when you wrote your senior thesis, you wrote that
Yes.
on environmental concerns within the Navajo Nation, right?
Yeah. Which that was like kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of like me talking about my livelihood and experience because my family is from a area on the Navajo Nation that really relies on coal mining. And I don't know, it was more of like it was more of just like a personal piece than I think a thesis, but it still was a thesis about how Native people live in a colonial society. It's not post-colonial, it's still a colonial society where natural resource extraction is kind of thrusted onto us, and how can we navigate that, according to our traditional beliefs and also according to living in a capitalistic cash economy world. So like, for all my relatives who work at coal mining institutions, it's really complex to say, oh, well, you need to care more about the environment and quit your job. Like, what? This is, an area on the reservation where there's not a lot of jobs. And to take that away for someone or look down on someone for like working these jobs is just so wrong. So yeah, I was just writing about how Navajo people felt about working with coal and kind of like the different perspectives. I think, often in academia, there's always this like urge to monolith Navajos and all types of indigenous people, but I don't know, that's not true. It's so complex. So it was exciting to kind of write about my community's very different and kind of polarizing feelings. So,
Yeah, and to write about it from the inside too, with family who sort of, I guess, like shows just how diverse the Navajo, I guess, experience can be in terms of like not being a monolith. Like you're a
yeah.
diehard environmentalist, but you also, recognize that, uh, yeah, it's not like an easy sort of situation to figure out economically.
No, and I think that like that kind of applies to like people all over the world, indigenous communities and non-indigenous communities. Like we saw this happening in Appalachia with Appalachian coal miners and their livelihoods being taken away, and it's complicated when you like live in a society where you need money, but at the same time, a lot of places, the jobs to give you cash are things that aren't so environmentally friendly. And I'm just grateful to be in a position where I can write about this and have these kinds of discussions, and just super thankful to like my family and my community for like letting me like discuss this because it's complicated and I don't know, it's complex, but it's definitely been something that I want to go back to. I just like I don't know. I don't know in which ways, academia or not, but yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not the only kind of research project that you've been involved in or that you've currently been speaking on, right? Because
Yeah.
was it this last weekend you presented a paper at an online symposium for is it the University of Oklahoma New Perspectives in Native American Art?
Yes, that was the symposium, which was like it was on Saturday, so it was like the day that we all found out like Joe Biden was president. So it's just kind of like a crazy, exciting time.
Yeah.
Um, it was like right after my presentation, and it was like, oh, thank God. But anyways, yeah, it was about contemporary Navajo weaving, which is something that I am super interested in just because it's so important to Navajo culture. And I think that it's a really good way to kind of talk about the cultural shift in Navajo ideology from traditional to contemporary. And in this like presentation in my paper, I kind of challenge, what does traditional mean? Like, what is Navajo traditional beliefs? Because I think for some people that could be pre-contact, others that could be like 17th century. And for some people, that could be when their grandparents were alive, so like circa 1940s. And throughout that entire time period, Navajos were weaving textiles and blankets and you know, clothing pieces. So it's interesting to like think about the stories that those pieces tell. And I did a lot of ethnographic interviews of weavers. So that was really fun because like a lot of them are good friends of mine. And blurring the lines between like friendship and like you like utilizing these relationships and like educating other people is always kind of cool. So
Yeah, well, I guess speaking of educating people, we have a question that came up.
okay. All
Um,
right.
and it looks like it says, well, this person's really happy that you're sharing this perspective, and it's very interesting to him or her. Have you had any opportunity to work with Indigenous people on environmental issues across US borders? So this is going back to your previous paper, but yeah, I know like you've traveled a little bit, you traveled to New Zealand. I am curious if like, you know, you sort of brought up those issues with Indigenous New Zealanders as well.
hmm Yeah, so I've been to Canada and I've been to New Zealand. So those are my oh, and Tahiti. So those are the places I've been to outside of the US, which was really eye-opening. And yeah, I did. Okay, so w this like super cool Maori fashion designer, Janine Clark, you should all follow her on Instagram. She was like, I made like a Polynesian Vogue, like a fake one for a class there. And she was like the main person I talked about because Janine does intersections of Maoriness, fashion, and like environmentalism. And she's really passionate about New Zealand's like oceans. So she does like clothing pieces that kind of speak to that. And she's done fashion collections that talk about like oil spills and like Maori, really important Maori land sites. And so like it is so rad to see what other people, other indigenous communities are doing because it's like, wow, like this person is so cool. Like I could totally do something like that, but in my little part of the world. Um, and so like talking to her and also when I was in Tahiti, I was so thankful to like work with T Tahitians and also more Maori people and talk about the ocean, which as me as a Navajo person, like I'm from the middle of the desert, we don't have water, but like being able to like see how like deeply integrated this is for their culture and how like so in Tahiti, it's colonized by the French government and how the French government is kind of infringing on indigenous rights and their oceanography. And I also got to do like, I was really fortunate to go on a traditional Maori canoe called a waka, and we did like a multi-day voyage. Um, and it was so cool to be around other older Maori women who were telling stories and like I don't know. It's just like there's just so much in my brain that I'm just so thankful for and like I definitely feel like I have a lot of work to do. Um and I don't know, in my career or life, I hope that's yes, includes Navajo people because I really care about my community, but also other indigenous people because we're all related, we're all relatives, and I think we're all facing very similar circumstances. So that was a very long answer, but there you go.
No, it was a great answer though, and like super contextualized to what you're interested in too, especially like the intersections within fashion and environmental work and um, yeah, sort of like
Yeah.
crossing those borders. That's amazing.
hmm
Um, well, surprisingly, it's been nearly 40 minutes. I know we didn't talk the whole time.
Yeah.
We kind of jumped in and out. But I guess before we end up heading off, is there anything you would like to sort of talk about in terms of what you're most looking forward to in the next 7 months of this continued Anne Ray internship?
Yeah. So one thing that I'm looking forward to is fingers crossed, who knows, but hopefully really working directly with Native communities in the area, and the people whose items we have in our collections at the IARC. You know, I think it's so important for me as a student to always be a listener. And like when we do our collections visits with Venancio, that is just like so important to me because like he is so knowledgeable and smart, and I'm like just in awe of him and his creativity. So I'm like working with people directly, but also like it's always a blast like when me, you, Felicia, and Molly are in the lab, or like Jen, like just I think being around other really amazing people here at SAR is really special, and like it's been super fun. And I guess my second answer is like the jewelry vault. I'm like always envious of those pieces, and working with them, I'm just like, oh my God, these people are like so talented, and it makes me really happy to work with the jewelry. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as a jewelry artist yourself, I'm sure you're getting so much inspiration and
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, that is like such a cool technique, or wow, like that's such a pretty stone. So yeah.
yeah, it does make you appreciate like the pure artistry behind each piece.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, I guess we can close this out. It looks like, um, oh, if you happen to have the name of that Maori artist, it looks like someone's asking for it in the
Oh
chat.
yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Um, Sorry, this is like an awful angle, but but that's how this whole Instagram live has been. So that's the vibe.
Right, exactly. It couldn't have. I feel like we hit bottom, so we could only go up from there.
Yes, but I just posted it. Okay, yeah. So
Oh,
she's
great.
really cool. And I'll try to share her stuff on my story. So if you follow me, I'll definitely share her work. She's really cool.
Great. And just so everyone knows, it's Sháńdíín 13. That's your
Yes.
little tag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for chatting with me today. This was pretty
Thank you,
fun. It was a
Emily.
learning process.
Thank you for your patience. And yeah, um, it's always a good time exploring, you know, social media. I've never done a live, so we did it.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Well, thank you all for staying with us and tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a little plug for next week's program. Felicia's going to be taking back the reins, which might be for the best. Um, so she'll be carrying on with the Artist Live program next Wednesday at 4 p.m. And she'll be chatting with Jordan Craig. So hopefully we will see you all next week, and we'll all be tuning in and asking questions to Jordan Craig.
Okay,
All right.
bye.
Thanks, Sháńdíín.
Bye.